Okay. Now I'm going to review some of our many accomplishments of the past year. This is sort of the portion of the program where Barbara and I try real hard to make people see what the Trustees actually does, what it's really all about, so that beyond visiting just a reservation, you get the full scope of the organization. First comes our core work in land conservation. And we're complicated. We have a three-pronged vision: preserving natural properties, cultural and historic properties, and now agricultural properties. It's a lot to have on one plate, but we think it's what makes the Trustees really interesting. I also might say that when you visit a number of our reservations, you see 2 or 3 of these things happening on the same reservation, and I think that makes for a much more interesting day out. In our efforts to be more focused and more strategic, we created the Elliott Initiative. Here's a map of the state. We're looking to fill in the holes, and this gives a feel. And what the Elliott Initiative is, in essence, a set of priorities for what we're going to do next. In other words, it's very premeditative. It doesn't come in over the transom. We think very deeply about what should be a trustee's reservation. And with these new criteria in place, we've established a targeted list of what we believe are the best opportunities for growing our platform. In other words, the best of the best. And these targets are in areas, there are 3 things we look for. A, where we don't currently have a presence, so that we can interact with more people. 2, near a lot of people that we can engage, near population centers. And 3, the reservation is so iconic, so engaging, that people will travel to be there. We call it a destination reservation. And we're about the halfway mark in our 5-year plan, and we're already seeing the fruits of this more targeted approach. In recent meetings, I have reported on the acquisition of the Ames Estate in Northeastern, last year and the year before, 2 phases. That's iconic. The Haskell Gardens in New Bedford, that's near a lot of people. And Mount Warner near Amherst, that's a destination for hiking as a natural property. So about a year ago, we began to explore a relationship with the Farm Institute on Martha's Vineyard. We call it TFI. Since we already own beach and nature properties covering about 10% of the vineyard, the concept here was to add a new dimension with a 186-acre agricultural property. We've negotiated an agreement to combine TFI with the trustees, and we've moved to satisfy due diligence criteria and to raise sufficient funds to put TFI on solid financial footing. At this point, we've raised the requisite $2 million and are now working for approvals with the local authorities. I am hopeful that at this time next year, we will be able to report that this combination has been completed. And TFI's board chair is here with us tonight, John Chatnower. You just elected him to become a corporate trustee. So John, now we really need to get this done. Not all acquisitions represent a lot of acres. As we have seen with our work in urban centers such as Boston, Holyoke, and New Bedford, where the focus has been, or at least started, with community gardens. This year we opened the Wilson Street Garden, a former vacant lot, which is now a place for residents to grow vegetables and feel a sense of civic ownership. With these seemingly small spaces, the impact can be profound on a neighborhood and in providing healthy food to local residents. We also continue to actively pursue those lands that are adjacent to our current reservations. We call these critical lands. And our Menemsha Reservation, also on Martha's Vineyard, was enhanced this summer with the acquisition of the Brickyard. We call it the Brickyard. It's an 18-acre gift from the late Flora Epstein and represents an often overlooked part of the vineyard's industrial past. It was the site of a commercial brick-making factory from 1642 through the 1800s, and it supplied bricks which would build many structures, including the Boston Public Library and Trinity Church. We want this property to tell this fascinating story to its visitors. Another critical land was a real challenge for our organization. It was not given to us, such as the last one, so we had to raise significant funds, and we needed to partner with others to get this job done. It's a beautiful open meadow on a hill adjacent to our Pegan Hill Reservation in Dover. It not only expands the footprint, but it increases the visitor experience because of its scenic vistas, which you see here. It was a joint effort between the trustees and the Dover Land Conservation Trust and the Town of Natick Conservation Commission. It required $7 million of funding, which was provided by significant philanthropy and town contributions. There are many here tonight were involved in making this happen, and I want to thank you all. And I particularly want to acknowledge Tom French, who chairs the Dover Lands Trust, whom you also just elected to our board of directors. We liked him so much, we couldn't let him get away. As I said in the video, many of us have a vision of not just maintaining our national historic landmarks, but restoring them to their full glory and bringing them to life with educational and community programming so that they will become much more engaging. As you've seen in the videos, we conceived a $25 million cultural resources campaign, and I am very happy at this point to report that it is 85% complete. Restoration and what I will call enlivenment is well underway, and it's starting to show at our reservations. Here you see some statistics where it's having a big impact at Namkeg. A 44% increase in visitation and a 72% increase in memberships. And speaking of Namkeg, we completed another phase of its restoration and are now well along in the final phase. We unveiled the colorful afternoon garden with its newly restored Venetian gondola poles, which you see here. This sort of detailed restoration is only possible with the right archival records, the right staff, and the resources to make it happen. And in the final phase, we are tackling the most difficult and perhaps the most complicated part with the restoration of the Chinese garden. This is an intricate garden room with architectural features including food dogs and a moon gate. Watch for this transformation over the coming year. And at the eastern end of the state, a comparable transformation and visitor increase is occurring. You see again the statistics, 81% increase in membership, 38% increase in attendance at the Castle Hill property up on the North Shore. The casino complex restoration opened new interior spaces which are now available to the public. It also included unearthing and restoration of exceptional statuary, which you see here, and stonework that had been covered over time. Off to the side of the LA, the Italian garden is also being restored. As you may know, Castle Hill is a campus of landscapes designed by designers such as Arthur Sircliffe and the Olmsted brothers, and is an incredible suite of gardens and grounds, all in one place. This intimate space offers an interesting contrast to the vast expanse of the LA. This is what you have heard both Nathan and Gussie talk so passionately about. As I have said, we are intent on making the visitor experience more compelling. This is what we're really trying to get right, to have more people come and then become involved in what we do. All across the state, we are investing in our engagement staff and our programming. We've added 12 new positions to accomplish this. To date, we have increased our program offerings by 100%, going from 900 annually to an estimated 2,000 by the end of this year. Many of these programs are focused on young families with children in order to fulfill our mission to inspire new generations of conservationists. Engaging youth is obviously one of our biggest challenges. We are also introducing new ways for visitors to experience our properties. At Far and Near in Shirley, recent improvements include a pavilion that is a good example of this approach. It involved a master plan which resulted in one of the more interactive and innovative spaces that we now have. An interpretive wall, which you see here, features hands-on activities for kids and families, and it's all centered around a hearth in the middle of the pavilion where gatherings around the fire can occur. If you haven't been out to Far and Near, you should go have a look. As you probably know, we are now the largest owner of farms in the state, and we are in the process of creating an agricultural strategy that will have a positive impact on making small-scale farming viable again in Massachusetts. This involves CSAs, where local residents buy a share of the vegetables that are produced. You saw that in the farm video. And our farms are also a golden opportunity to introduce ourselves to new communities. This summer, we launched a CSA at Chestnut Hill Farm in Southborough, a community more than 30 miles from any other trustee's property. So this exposes us to a whole range of new people. We officially opened the property with a family festival this fall and a huge turnout of more than 700 for that event. This summer, we also expanded our presence in Boston by opening the kitchen at the Boston Public Market. This 2,000 square foot teaching space welcomes visitors to learn more about fresh food and locally grown food and healthy living. In the first 2 months, 6,000 people toured the space and 2,000 participated in the new programs being offered there. We are hopeful that such a powerful platform as this will help us engage people and inform newcomers about our various farms and our other reservations. We hope that this will connect us to a lot of people who don't currently know about the trustees. So in conclusion, the trustees is all about protecting and connecting. Protecting land, historic properties, and farms, and connecting people to these places. That's the essence of what we do. We are trying to find new things to find the best way to have a bigger impact in the delivery of our mission. We are taking some risks, but I believe they are appropriate risks and will result in major steps forward. You have seen that we're growing rapidly, double digits in both staff and revenues. This makes us a place of opportunity, but it also creates growing pains, and we're very self-aware on this. One of the things we debate most is scope and scale and pace. How fast? And we're trying to find the right balance. It's no simple task, but we think no small thoughts. So I want to thank Barbara and the whole executive team and staff for taking on these challenges and for working so hard to accomplish them. They are making great strides, and it's very exciting to be part of it. Please give them a round of applause for a year well done. And with that, I will turn it over to Barbara to give us a glimpse into the future.
All right, home stretch. Good evening. Welcome to the 124th annual meeting of the trustees. Before I get started, I just want to offer a heartfelt thank you to Mr. David Croll, who not only works so hard throughout the year giving long hours, but then we bring him to the annual meeting and he doesn't even get a chance to eat or drink. So to Dave, thank you. It's a real pleasure to do this meeting with Dave, as I feel his guidance is always present all year long, and much of our success benefits from your advice. As he said, there's much to be proud of in the last year. We continue to acquire, break ground, restore, activate, and share. And we are now the largest conservation organization in the state by acreage, by members, by revenues. And we are experiencing, as you heard earlier, our third year of double-digit growth. We saved places, we engaged more people, we delivered on the strategic plan, and we raised our game yet again. For all of that and much, much more, I want to take a pause and congratulate our governance, our talented executive team, our more than 200 committed year-round staff, our 500 seasonal staff, and 2,000 volunteers who are truly the impact of the trustees. I'd also like to thank and congratulate especially John McCrae for his 13 years of service. John, as many of you know, will be departing at the end of November to join the Kendall Foundation. His tireless commitment to conservation has benefited all of us, and we are entirely grateful, John, for your service, and know that just as Andy Kendall has, you will continue to be a member of the Trustees family. You're buying the drinks later. And speaking of family, as I've entered my fourth year as president here, I continue to be grateful for the opportunity to spend time at our properties with my own. We are a true trustees family now, but I don't want you to suggest that we are the idyllic outdoorsy one. I still work to get us away from our iPads, which my kids would gladly do 24/7. And even though we are steeped in trustees, it still requires effort and intentionality. Imagine the leader of a conservation organization still struggles to get my kids outdoors. So this year, we took up the great Boston tradition of heading to the Cape, escaping to our home in Chatham and becoming more familiar with the incredible lands there. That's not actually our home, that's the aerial. The wonderful Cape country was written about in our first annual report, which said, "In a few years, it will be thronged and crowded by summer dwellers, from Provincetown to Buzzards Bay. Unless great areas here are made public, free for the people's enjoyment forever, the time will come when the tired dwellers in the cities, who are driven by the heat of summer to seek new life by the sea, will be cribbed, cabined, confined in conditions very like those from which they are trying to escape." After spending way too many hours of my life going over the Sagamore Bridge, I am deeply grateful for the vision of what was to come. Perhaps Route 6 can be considered cribbed and confined, but overall, good conservation work and foresight by many preserved a cherished piece of Massachusetts, and it still remains a place to escape to instead of a place to escape from, and is just one of thousands of examples of the trustees' legacy. I experience this gratitude and awe routinely for the iconic landscapes and landmarks that we so greatly benefit from as visitors, as residents. With our inspiring wilds of Great Point on Nantucket, or the refuge of Castle Neck at Crane, or the crisp snow on the trails at Notchview, or the unique gardens of Long Hill, or more recently, the spectacular vistas of Pegan Hill. We have much to be thankful for. And to know we've preserved 114 of these special places. It's amazing to think of the continuity, the steadfastness, and the longevity of such an assembly, while at the same time remaining nimble and responsive to the demands of the changing world around us. We are not simply keepers of the flame. To preserve, for public use and enjoyment, properties of exceptional, scenic, historic, and ecological value. This mission will soon be 125 years old. A birthday for which to celebrate, because rarely does anything last that long anymore. It is also an opportunity, however, to reflect on its unique dual mandate: to save places forever, for everyone. In September, I had the privilege to be a keynote for the International National Trust Conference, a gathering of 80 national trusts from around the world, from Britain to Australia, from France to Montserrat. I spoke about the Trustees' founding and how our organization spawned an international rising to protect, to save, and to share the natural and cultural treasures worldwide, making them publicly available. While each country grapples with distinct issues, there was a universality among us that was reassuring. The speaking lineup was stellar company to be in. We were slated between Prince Charles and the President of American Express, and in a gathering of like minds. It was a time of pride for the trustees to be recognized as a pioneer of the movement. This unique creature we are, unlike any other organization we know of in the US, setting the bar, advancing the movement, not only here in Massachusetts, but also as an example around the world. This conference focused on the challenges and opportunities we all face now, and the need for solutions and innovations. Some of the challenges included: how do we respond to the impacts of climate change? How do we ensure the future of agriculture? How do we manage lands at scale? I will talk tonight on how saving places, the historic and cultural, the natural and ecological, the scenic and beautiful, has changed economically, politically, geographically, and how I believe the work will get accomplished in Massachusetts in the decades to come. Other challenges: how do we adapt conservation to the return to urban life? How do we ensure equity for the benefit of all and not just the privileged? Tonight I will focus on how public use and enjoyment has become even more needed and intentional, this idea of being for all that has more resonance with the issues of our founding than perhaps ever before. And finally, the biggest question we grappled with: how do we increase the relevancy of our mission for the next generation? And this is where it all comes together. Tonight I will share with you some thoughts about the relevancy of what we do, and how our work has not only maintained its relevance over a century plus, but has become even more so. We are an important antidote to the chaotic and distracted society that we've become. When Charles Elliott founded the Trustees in 1891, it was a distinct time of opportunity. This is the era where you see our country's creation of some of its most outstanding work in open space: urban parks, design leadership of Olmsted, the establishment of municipal planning that created better cities, and the beginning of conservation. This great leadership, however, was in response to many factors. First, we had a rapid urbanization in Boston that was the result of successful industry, but at an incredible pace. In 1870, we were a population of 250,000 people in this city, and just 20 years later, the year we were founded, that number had doubled. In just 2 decades, as more left behind rural life in exchange for what they saw as the promise of industry. This time also saw a boom in immigrant communities, with Ellis Island opening in 1892. With that growth, of course, there were serious public health concerns. People were living very closely and in poorly planned neighborhoods, many living in squalor with no leisure or activity. Work weeks were long, an average of 76 hours, and yielded little income. And then finally, you have new wealth, and this creates an explosion of land privatization and buying up the coast and countryside for estates, leaving, as our founders observed, little open space for the majority of the populations, essentially a few church centers in town commons. Our founders could not have known the exponential impact, but they understood the need for the public to experience their own shores, to interact with nature, to preserve their own history and culture, to lift up the common person from a common and diminished life. To achieve this, for most of our history, saving land was the pinnacle activity, almost to the point that it was enough within itself. Now, today, 25%, over 1 million acres of the Commonwealth is protected from accomplishments of the trustees, federal, state, local, and nonprofit actors. And when you reflect on what has been done in 125 years by us and others, to think we have protected a quarter of the state, this is amazing. But, in case you were wondering, as I was, is this a lot or a little in comparison? We focus on numbers a lot at the trustees. So here we are, 12% of land protected nationally, New York at 20%. We're doing better than Maine at 8%, but with drastically different population, and not as prolific as California at over 40%. Now, the knee-jerk immediate response is to think where we can save more. Others might be thinking, how can we beat California? And some of you in this room are still thinking about Maine, but we hope you will catch up. There are a lot of you in this room thinking about Maine. The trustees conserves private lands as we always have, especially where needs are most critical, like farms, coast, and in cities. Roughly 1,000 acres a year over the past 3 years. And that will continue, and you can count on us to be on the hunt for the unique, the iconic, the inspiring. My favorite reservation is always the one we are trying to acquire. And yet, from time to time, I get this unusual question. Are we still focused on land protection if we are investing in education, urban initiatives, cultural restorations? My answer to that is we absolutely are. We are committed to leading land conservation in a changing world, and that requires changing tactics. We have over 160 land trusts in our state, the same number as California, all continuing to drive the fight for land protection, and for good reason. Without a vigilant eye, we would lose what we care about. But this laser focus, this very eye on the prize of land protection, can make us vulnerable to another critical aspect that also needs our attention. We must widen the lens of what conservation entails. The great act of protection is not the final one. Conservation must also mean better care for these iconic landscapes and landmarks that so many fought hard to save. Some from long ago, like Helen Butler for Monument Mountain and Polly Thayer Starr for Ware River Farm. And some more recently, who are here with us tonight, like my Dover friends for Pegan Hill, or George Lewis for Rocky Narrows, or Paul Prisbilla for Far and Near. These individuals did not fight to save these amazing special places, these ecologically and culturally important treasures, to see them be degraded or poorly cared for. If we know that these special places improve our quality of life, then we must all have much more emphasis and commitment to caring for what's already been saved. Or better said, old is the new green. How do we manage these 1 million acres, sustain these places, both in the environmental and financial sense? I believe there is opportunity in the coming decades for the trustees and our peers to strengthen the future by joining together through partnership, integration, and even mergers. And in doing so, create more strength, more sustainable impact. Going forward, we expect to more actively pursue mergers and partnerships that are aligned with our own mission, but not able to go to scale, and where such unions would create a stronger future for conservation. It may not be new acreage saved, it might not fill up the map or add to the percentage, but like our other land protection work, it is still about conserving for the benefit of all, forever. We are an incredibly fortunate organization, stable, efficient, of considerable scale and expertise, one of the top 10 nonprofits in Massachusetts, with an amazing constituency who cares about our work. And in the years ahead, we will be more diligent, active, welcoming, and moreover, excited about how to lead the way in managing lands at scale, how to lead in partnering and even consolidating to achieve our ambitions. The trustees, as the largest, oldest, and strongest, can play a pivotal role. Tonight, our old friends, Peter Creighton, Joanne Zidek, Amy Auerbach, and Paula Cortez are here. They have been longtime champions for open space in Boston through Boston Natural Areas Network, or BNAN, and in Amy's case, for a quarter of a century. They have fought for and cared about not whole acres, but fractions of acres, one desolate lot at a time. Add it all up, and it does have an acreage story to tell, 16 in fact. But the real story of the gardens, the greenways, the pocket parks is not one of acreage, but of lives being changed. And when BNAN merged with us last year, they saw a path forward that provided greater stability and expansion. The outcome has seen a unique opportunity for the trustees to not only sustain, but advance conservation in our capital city. Tonight you heard about a new friend in the room, Jonathan Chattenover. He's the chair of the Farm Institute in Edgartown. You can relate to John and his fellow board members' stories, fighting to care for one of the vineyard's last farms for over a decade, to preserve the land and history of agriculture, and to engage a new generation in understanding it. In working towards a merger with the Farm Institute, we're integrating education, preservation, and conservation seamlessly, and each of the components will enhance our mission delivery, strengthen conservation, both on island and off. The outcome will be a continual regeneration of support and build a new tribe of conservationists, just like all of you here. If this is the way conservation will evolve going forward, then what is the future for public use, or simplified access? Over time, we've become a more welcoming bunch. We've made amazing progress and become more accessible. And now each year, 1.5 million people visit our places. 200,000 of them come for our educational programs, most of them families. Now there's something really amazing about this. We are sandwiched between the Boston Museum of Fine Arts and the Museum of Science for visitation, and well beyond our conservation peers for constituency and reach. This means the trustees are offering something people want, need, yearn for, and it means we are truly achieving access. But because we exist to benefit all, as you heard earlier in Dave's remarks, we have to continue to drive accessibility, to be where people are and where conservation is lacking. Like the Haskell Public Gardens in New Bedford, where neighbors who never knew such a stunning place existed right next door now have their own secret garden. Or Chestnut Hill Farm in Southborough, where we brought back a working farm for schools and families to have an opportunity to meet the goats right in their neighborhood. Or the gardens of Boston's South End, where the gardeners range from the urbane sophisticate to the amateur who has never put their hands into dirt. This is access. And add all that up, and we're now within 5 miles of half the state's residents. We have a long road ahead, and it requires leading work in new, different, and urban geographies and directions, which can be expensive and complex. Like here. Here you are looking at the former Hess oil site in East Boston. This 7 acres has been on my mind since the first time I saw it earlier this year. It's fenced off from its residents, who then go around those fences, jump them, literally, to enjoy the water's edge. For the community living here, it would be a phenomenal recreational resource and natural habitat, so they have fought for over a decade to save it, but with no luck. And it pains me that it still sits there, fenced off. And I think of places like this when I think of access. Or places like this one, a story of the modernist movement, a 1940s gathering of artists and architectural genius connecting with the land in Truro and Wellfleet. And a gentleman by the name of Peter McMahon, a Cambridge architect who has been writing and moreover fighting to keep these places from disintegrating, being torn down, disappearing, to make them accessible to the public. Our commitment to people is paramount over the next 125 years, saving, stewarding, and connecting special places where people are and want to be, and hopefully all will benefit from the same that we have been given. And that leads me to my last thought for the evening, and it spans beyond conservation and access, and that is relevance. And what do we uniquely offer to this different, busy world? I think something incredibly powerful, and that is the tangible, fundamental, powerful connection between people and land. From our beginning, we understood that 2 things must always be in play: repetition and public buy-in, and that without these 2 things, the mission would be marginalized, lost, diminished. The trustees represent something authentic, evergreen. We are made of life's most important components and the cure for many of the challenges to physical, mental, and social health for ourselves, our communities, our children, and our children's children. Just think of what we offer. Nature, which sustains us. History, which teaches us. Culture, which defines us. Agriculture, which nourishes us. And memories, which inspire us. How we help create an inspired life is in some ways so terribly obvious and yet so challenging to provide. I thought long and hard about how to get this point across without talking to you about childhood obesity rates or nature detachment disorder, and the simplest way I could do that was to use myself. My family. We are busy, we are rushed, hurried with soccer and ballet and doctor's appointments and groceries and school and go here and go there. I struggle to get my kids into nature not because of technology, but because of time. And I know all the reason why it matters, and I love all the reasons why it matters. So while it would be incredibly easy to sit back and say, the inspired will find us in our engaging farms, or our beautiful landmarks and coasts, or our brief respites of green all across the state, we must give them reason to come, and with repetition. We have to provoke the argument that it's worth the time to stop, to look, to experience, to enjoy, because our frenetic world wants all aspects of life mushed together, self-curated. We want our art mixed with science. We want our culture mixed with nature. We want our family mixed with technology. We want healthy living mixed with convenience. We want stories mixed with history. We want an authentic experience, moreover, a welcoming experience. You see, our public desires our relevance, our inspiration, but they want it on their own terms, and it is our responsibility to be ready for them. So if it takes some simple things like bathrooms or car parks or signs, or some creative things like sustainable bathrooms or convenient car parks or beautiful signs, or even better, some innovative things like interpreting our reservations in different languages, as we have started to do in Chinese and Spanish, or growing our programming from 900 annually to over 2,000, as we did this year with drive-in movies and teaching kitchens, or helping open the Boston Public Market, Boston's first indoor market in over 100 years, or developing a refreshed T logo that is mobile-friendly, or bringing contemporary art installations to World's End, or mobile food markets, connecting our farms to neighborhoods, or pop-up gardens, or pop-up forests that are inescapable, but in the good way. We are simply meeting people where they are, and that is the definition of relevance. It doesn't ruin the beautiful fabric and the intellectual nature of our work. It doesn't make us populist or Disney-fied. If in this changing world, the trustees are the ever constant, we must continually reintroduce ourselves. We must find the new ways to be regenerative. We must reach the successive generations that Elliott imagined, and with it, ensure the future of conservation. Think for a moment at what it means to have lasted and endured, and moreover grown so strong in 125 years. What has been accomplished? And now think of what can be done in the future, how we are not the last to hold the mantle. Together over time, we have all saved something amazing, but it is not just for us. As you think of this, imagine what you can do, what we can collectively do to introduce and further the ideals of conservation. It's like a sapling, which we will never see grow to its height. We must not ponder, but simply plant it in a sunny spot, take care of it, and watch it grow. I think together, it can be more than we ever imagined. Thank you for growing the movement, connecting people to place. Join us next year to plan for the next century. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Barbara, for a great presentation and being such a great leader of the trustees. Is there any other business to come before the meeting? I am like Brian, hoping that there isn't. There being none, may I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Everybody wants to go home. We are adjourned. Good night, everybody, and thank you for coming.